Okay, this is the 140-160 class. We're going to be doing two-voice practice now. We're going to do this at 150 words per minute. I'll let you want to do the question. I think they like having a question on that side.
Okay.
Wait.
Okay, thank you. Okay, for the record, is it your experience in your 10 years as a funeral director that quite often you will have people wearing formal attire such as suits, dress pants, dress shoes, things of that nature?
As far as attending the visitation and/or funeral?
Yes.
That's correct. Yes, I have noticed those items being worn.
Certainly, every once in a while, you will have someone come in with pink hair and gym shoes, but generally people will be respectful of the deceased and the family and wear somewhat formal attire, correct?
Correct.
And in fact, am I correct to presume that when a wake or funeral proceedings are going on, that you, in fact, would be dressed in formal attire, correct?
That's correct. I would be wearing a suit and tie and dress shoes, yes.
Is it also your experience in your 10 years of being a funeral director that oftentimes when people are making visitations at funerals and or wakes, that oftentimes you have a lot of grieving people there?
That's correct, yes.
Or people who may be emotional?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Now, does Sunset Funeral Home, does it operate basically throughout the entire year?
Yes, it does.
There's a funeral home. Is it open 7 days a week for services, or are there certain days that you just don't have visiting or funeral hours?
To correctly answer your question, someone out of the directors is on call 24 hours a day. The funeral home can be open 24 hours a day for the general public. The visitations are usually in the afternoon and evening. As far as having a visitation on Sunday, yes. A funeral service, yes. But a procession to the cemetery, no, because the cemeteries are not open on Sunday for burial.
However, your operation of the funeral home is essentially open 365 days a year. If a family would like to have a service on any particular day during that year, it can be accommodated, correct?
It can be accommodated if it's not against certain beliefs, such as the Catholic faith during the holy days. Then we don't have services on those days, but actually we are accommodating the family in any way that we can.
Okay. With that understanding, then, the Sunset Funeral Home also operates during wintertime, correct?
Yes, it does.
And there are times in Northwest Indiana where there are snowstorms or ice storms or precipitation where the conditions can be dangerous in the parking lot, correct?
Correct.
During those winter months or the months in which we have snowfall and ice conditions that can be dangerous, are there certain policies in effect with respect to protecting the clients and the visitors of the funeral home from ice and snow buildup?
We do not have a specific policy. The funeral director that is on call the specific day we would be speaking about would be in charge and using their own common sense to seeing to those needs.
And with respect to ice buildup on the parking lot, you said that the funeral director would use his own common sense. What is your understanding as to the danger of ice on the parking lot? Do you understand that can be dangerous at any amount of, or after a certain level?
Would you please rephrase that question?
You said before that the funeral directors are kind of forced to rely on their own common sense with respect to determining how to best accommodate the needs of the clientele with respect to the dangers of ice and snow on the parking lot.
Correct.
Based upon your own understanding, is there any certain level of ice that presents a danger to the people that are using your facility, or is it a situation where any amount and any level of ice can be dangerous?
Any level of ice would be dangerous.
Isn't that particularly true, that at any level of ice can be dangerous when you have people who are dressed in formal attire and may have leather soles? Isn't that correct?
Leather soles on their shoes is what I am talking about. Yes, ma'am, it sure would be.
And as a funeral director, you understand that when you have a funeral or a wake, you may have some people who come to the funeral home who may have leather soles on their shoes, correct?
Correct.
So with that understanding, if there is any amount of accumulation of ice on the parking lot at the funeral home prior to a wake or a funeral service, is it necessary that you salt or put down some sort of either salt or sand to either remove the ice or protect your clients from the snow or from the ice?
You're asking me, is it necessary that some sort of salt or sand be put down to protect the clients? Yes, it would be.
Okay. And if you are the funeral director for a particular wake or funeral, what sort of arrangements do you make to make sure that the parking lot is in a safe condition during the course of a funeral or a wake?
What I do is I contact our snow removal company that we use, which is Lawn Care. They, at that point, will come. For every 2 inches of snow, they will scrape the parking lot. If it is a snow that is falling overnight and has become packed, the following morning, when the snow removal company comes, I cannot give you a time. It's early morning. They may not be able to scrape down all the snow of the parking lot surface, so it could be impacted snow. And at that point, I cannot answer you whether there is ice on top of the snow or not. It's supposed to be an 8.
What were we in?
You're in 6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Let's do this. Let's talk to it needs. All right, this will be at 150 words per minute.
Okay, it begins with a question for the record. What is your present occupation,
I am an MD, a psychiatrist.
and what other degrees do you hold?
That's all I hold.
Dr. Kinsky, where are you currently employed?
River Forest Mental Health Center,
And what is your position at River Forest Mental Health Center?
clinical director,
How long have you held that position?
10 years.
What is your association with Ronald Phelps?
I was asked last October to provide psychiatric assessment and supervision to a Ronald Phelps. So since October, we have been meeting on a weekly basis.
How long are your weekly sessions?
They are supposed to be 1 hour. Because of his low tolerance, it's usually minutes or a half hour.
What is the purpose of these sessions?
To assess his mental status at first, then to assess his progress, if he makes any, and to find any changes in his mental condition.
Doctor, are you fluent in sign language?
No,
How do you communicate with Mr. Phelps?
I use a sign language interpreter.
Now, on February 21st, 1989, did you have occasion to meet with Mr. Phelps?
Yes,
And did you conduct an evaluation of him at that time?
yes,
Was that evaluation conducted for the purpose of doing a certificate for this court?
yes.
Okay, at that time, on February 21st, when you met with Mr. Phelps, what were your observations concerning Mr. Phelps at that time?
At that time, there was no change from previous sessions, except this time I informed Mr. Phelps that we will have to go to court and that I will have to do a certificate. I asked him what his comment was. He wanted to be discharged and to get a job. That's what he wanted to tell the judge. He was very pleased about going to court.
So, except for this one thing, he really was not different with you from earlier times.
Yes,
How was he in the earlier times that were consistent with this time?
there were periods when he was friendly, touching my arm. At the same time, he was more aggressive. He was a leader. He would show me where to go. We met several times in his room. He would select the place to meet. He had no patience for extended periods of time, so he would get up and walk. He would get angry for obvious reasons. For example, I had to question his readiness to fill out an application for a job. He got angry and pulled the application form away and wanted me to fill it out for him, or he would walk away and hit the door or table. He never hit me or the nurse.
Okay, when you say he was hitting the door or the table, what did he use to hit the door?
I think he was getting rid of his aggressive behavior.
What did he use to hit the door?
His fist.
What did you notice about Mr. Phelps if what he wanted didn't happen immediately?
He has no patience. On one occasion, another patient approached the table and he got angry and just pushed him.
Do you have any idea when?
That happened 2 weeks before that session.
And where did that occur?
That happened downstairs in a hall where there were tables.
Where was that?
In the building, we have a place where we have vending machines, and there are a couple of tables. I met him there because he was getting a Coke.
Who else was present when this happened?
The interpreter.
Tell us what happened.
The patient approached the table apparently because he wanted some potato chips on the table. Mr. Phelps just pushed the patient. From my observation, the patient had the same right to the potato chips as he did.
Dr. Kinski, from your observation of Ronald Phelps on this occasion, and also in your weekly sessions between October and today, have you been able to formulate an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to his mental condition?
Yes.
What is that?
Basically, his mental condition that presents a problem is excessive reaction to ever minor stimulus and second, inability to control his aggression.
Those two issues that you talk about, are those issues defined in any of the diagnostic publications?
Yes, it's defined in the conduct disorder as a...
What are those two types of conditions considered as a diagnosis for what?
We diagnose that as an impulse to control disorder at code 312.39.
Are those considered by the diagnostic manual as a mental illness?
Yes.
Now, doctor, let me just hand you what has been marked. States Exhibit number 5 and ask you this: is this a copy, a true and accurate copy of the certificate that you filed with the court for Ronald Phelps in this case?
It looks like it, yes.
Is the information contained concerning the date and time of your examination correct?
Yes.
Is the information contained in the body of that certificate correct as to the clinical observations and factual observations that you made about Ronald Phelps on February 21st of 1989?
Not only that day, but I quote here from previous observations too.
Doctor, as a result of your evaluation of Ronald Phelps, both on February 21st and since that time, have you been able to form an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to whether or not Mr. Phelps is a person who is mentally ill and because of that illness is reasonably expected to inflict serious physical harm upon himself or another in the near future?
Yes. Do some more practice. Okay, this will be two-voice practice at 160 words per minute.
It begins with a question for the record. Would you state your full name for the record, ma'am?
Janet Brown.
Well, Mrs. Brown, my name is David Grant, and I represent the defendants in this matter. Have you had an opportunity to talk with your attorney about a deposition?
Yes, I have.
You understand that the reporter here is going to take down everything you say and transcribe it. You'll have an opportunity to look at it after it's transcribed.
Yes.
One of the things, if I ask a question that is confusing or that you don't understand, ask me to rephrase it, and I'll go ahead and do so.
Okay.
Are you married, Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
What's your husband's name?
Frank.
How long have you been married to Frank?
14 years.
Do you have any children?
Yes.
How many children?
2.
What are their names?
Desiree, Desiree, Desire with an extra E, and Clinton,
How old is Clinton?
9.
How old is Desiree?
21.
Is Brown your maiden name?
No.
What was your maiden name?
Clark, Clark.
Were you raised in Albuquerque?
No.
Where were you born?
Gallup.
Were you raised in Gallup?
Yes.
How long ago did you move to Albuquerque?
9 years ago.
Do you have a current driver's license?
Yes.
Can I take a quick look at it?
Sure.
Thank you. Do you know if you have any restrictions on your driver's license, ma'am?
No, not that I know of.
Are you required to wear glasses?
Yes.
It shows license number 03858430.
Yes.
Mrs. Brown, did you have an opportunity to inspect the accident scene which gives rise to this lawsuit before your deposition today?
No.
You didn't go out and visit it before you came here?
No.
Have you reviewed any documents in preparation for your deposition today?
Yes, sir.
What documents would those be?
Basically letters from Johnson.
Have you had the opportunity to review any statements that you might have given to the insurance company or anything of the like?
No.
Are you currently working, Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Where are you working?
Dyncorp, Dyncorp.
Where are they located?
I don't know the address. It's on the corner of Wyoming.
What kind of business is Dyncorp?
They do contracts for the government.
What is your position there?
Computer operator.
How long have you been with Dyncorp?
About 3 weeks.
Who is your supervisor at Dyncorp?
Bob Smith and Gary Sanders.
When you say that you're a computer operator, do you enter data into the computer, or do you actually program the computers?
It's just basically operations. I don't do any programming. We have a programmer.
Did you have to undergo any sort of specialized training before you started your job at Dyncorp?
I am in training at the present time.
You are training in Alamo, as I understand it.
Yes.
Is that the 3 weeks you have been in Alamo training?
No, I've been there a total of 6 days.
How much more time do you anticipate having to train in Alamo?
Approximately 3 weeks.
So you should be done by the end of March 7th.
That's what they're shooting for.
Is it classroom training each day?
No, it's on the job training.
Do they have an office down there, or is it a training center?
No, it's an office.
Is your supervisor down there Bob Smith or Gary Sanders?
Down there, it's Bob Smith.
I see. What sorts of requirements physically does a typical 8-hour day have? Are you required to sit most of the time, or stand, or a combination?
Well, it varies. It depends on the workload. Some days it's a lot of sitting. Some days it's on your feet and lifting boxes.
What sorts of boxes do you lift? Boxes full of paper?
Computer paper.
Are you required to do that every day or just certain days?
Most of the days.
Do you have a set terminal that you're required to work at each day? Or do you move around?
Move around.
Do you move around to different computer terminals all day?
We use 2 in the computer room mostly.
When you finish your training session, will you then be supervising some people here in Albuquerque?
It's possible.
I want to kind of jump back here. I know that you're not making a claim at this time for lost wages.
Not specifically, no.
Mrs. Brown, what high school did you graduate from?
Cathedral High School.
Would that be in Gallup?
Yes.
What year was that?
1965.
Did you go to college after you graduated from Cathedral High School?
No, I went to trade school.
What trade school did you attend?
Do you want the name of the school?
That's fine.
It's no longer here at the present time. It was called the American College of Machine Education
Where was that located?
at San Mateo and Central.
And what sort of curriculum did they offer?
data processing and accounting.
How long did you attend the American College?
1 year.
Did you receive any sort of degree or certification?
Certification.
What was your certification in?
Operations, computer operations.
Did you go on to any other formal education after you graduated from the American College?
No.
Did you attend any seminar type of course since then?
Yes. This will be some two-voice practice at 170 words per minute.
Begins with a question for the record. Where exactly at 49th did you pull him over?
Right at 49th Avenue, right at 4900 and Broadway on the Avenue.
He was still going northbound?
Yes.
Did he at any time lose control of the car?
No, but he kept picking up pace as far as speed is concerned.
I mean, other than smoking the tires, he was in control of the vehicle?
I can't say he was in control because I was at an angle when I saw him pulling off and smoking his tires. I can't say if the car was weaving to the sides. I mean, if you smoke your tires in place, that doesn't necessarily mean your car is going to stay in place while you're smoking your tires.
But what I mean by it is that the only thing that caused you to stop him for an unsafe start when the smoking of the tires?
That and the general idea that the club was letting out and there are people on the street, which becomes a safety issue, is my concern.
Did you observe anything about his control of the vehicle that caused you? Did you observe anything about the vehicle that indicated to you that he was not in control of the vehicle?
I don't recall.
In other words, the tires, after they initially smoked, stopped smoking.
Okay.
Is that correct? They didn't smoke all of the way up to 49th?
No, it did not.
And they appeared at some time after the initial smoking to grip the pavement, did they not?
I would say so, yes.
Since obviously he was moving forward,
I would say so.
His car was moving forward in a straight line. You didn't see him weave back and forth across lanes or anything.
No, I did not.
And for all other intents and purposes other than smoking of the tires, at the beginning, he was in control of the vehicle from what you could observe.
From what I could observe, yes.
Now, when you stopped him for this unsafe start, did you have your lights activated?
Yes, I did.
Did you have your siren on?
Yes, I did.
Did he respond to your lights and your siren by pulling over?
He did.
And when he pulled over, what did you do?
When he pulled over, I then exited my vehicle.
Out of the driver's side door, I assume?
Yes, out of my driver's side door.
You were on patrol alone?
Yes.
I would assume there is a certain amount of apprehension that one has when everyone has a traffic stop at that time of day or night, not knowing whether you're dealing with somebody who might be intoxicated or otherwise.
Yes.
Did you radio in that you had stopped a vehicle?
Yes, I did.
That's standard procedure.
Yes.
Did you ask for a backup?
Did I ask for backup? I don't recall that.
Is backup standard procedure during a traffic stop?
It depends. We're always undermanned in my area, and no, as far as pulling over cars all of the time and calling it in, it just depends on what the traffic is like over the air.
Were you alone, or was he alone in the vehicle from what you could observe?
From what I could observe, yes.
At the time that you activated your lights and put on your siren, what, if anything, did you know about the driver of the vehicle?
I didn't know anything about the driver.
Did you know whether or not it was male or female?
No.
Did you know whether he was black or white?
No.
Did you know anything about the license registration of the vehicle? You probably...
When I called it in, I would have known.
When did you call it in?
When I did the traffic stop.
Before or after you got out of your vehicle?
During, and while I was pulling it over, I was calling it in.
And before you got out of your vehicle, did you have any report back as to who you might be dealing with?
No.
So no name or identification came back?
Not at that point, no.
Did you go up to the car?
Yes.
And was the driver's window open or closed when you went up to the vehicle?
I don't recall.
Did you speak to the driver?
Yes, at one point.
Do you know how you spoke to the driver in terms of, well, was it through the window or through an open door?
I want to say it was through the window. I don't recall if he lowered the window as I was walking up or if he had it cracked. I don't recall that.
I've always been taught that when you're pulled over by a police officer, to keep your hands on the wheel and not to do anything. Roll down the window, don't touch anything, just stay in place until you receive instructions. Is that a good idea?
It's a good idea, yes.
I just want to make sure that the advice I have is sound.
It's a good idea, yes.
In any event,
For safety.
was there anything about his behavior that caused you any concern or alarm that you recall as you sit here now?
Well, due to the fact that he was speeding away from the club at that time, I didn't exactly know the nature of why he would be doing what he was doing, as far as taking off at that high rate of speed and turning his tires. I didn't know what the circumstances were.
It was a fair coin toss that you might have a DUI on your hands.
I wasn't looking at it that way.
No, but I'm asking if what happened was that when you stopped his vehicle and got out of your car and were going up to him to speak with him,
Right?
or the person you later determined to be him, did he do anything to cause you any concern by his movements?
He was just from field experience, he was acting very nervous, very nervous.